Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 493, The Great British Queue Scandal. Intermediate. Margaret had been standing in the queue for exactly 12 minutes and 17 seconds. She knew this because she had been timing it on her watch like it was an Olympic event. Behind her, a man in a tweed jacket sighed dramatically. "Unbelievable," he muttered. Margaret had to agree. This was the bakery's grand reopening, and the queue was longer than one for Wimbledon final tickets. She wasn't even sure a croissant was worth this level of endurance, but principle mattered. She had committed, and she wouldn't back down now. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, a woman in a bright red coat darted past the queue and stood directly at the front. She had bypassed at least 20 people without a second thought. Margaret's gasp was audible. The tweed jacket man let out a strangled noise of outrage. "You can't just..." Margaret began, but was too shocked to finish her sentence. The queue, once a peaceful display of British patience, began murmuring like angry bees. "Did you see that?" whispered an elderly woman clutching her shopping bag. "Scandalous," muttered another, shaking his head. People exchanged glances of disbelief. The queue, usually governed by unwritten laws of etiquette, had been disrupted by a rogue element. This was an unprecedented breach of decorum, one that could not go unchallenged. Margaret, taking it upon herself to restore order to society, cleared her throat. "Excuse me," she said to the woman in the red coat who was busy inspecting pastries. "This is a queue." The woman turned, seemingly unfazed. "Oh, I didn't see all of you there," she said brightly, as if the gathered group were part of a bizarre magic trick she had just witnessed. A collective scoff rippled through the queue. Margaret narrowed her eyes. This was not accidental. This was queue jumping in its most blatant form. "You'll need to go to the back," she declared firmly. The woman blinked at her, looked genuinely surprised. "Oh, but I'm only getting a croissant." The tweed jacket man finally found his voice. "We're all getting something," he sputtered. "That's the point of a queue." A murmur of approval ran through the group. The woman tilted her head, considering her options. Then, just as Margaret thought justice had prevailed, the bakery cashier called out, "Next!" The woman in red casually stepped forward and placed her order. The queue collectively gasped. It was an outrage, a crime against British values, an affront to decency. People exchanged looks of horror, shaking their heads as if civilization itself had been threatened. Margaret was ready to protest further, but the cashier handed the woman her croissant, and before anyone could stop her, she strolled out of the bakery, blissfully ignorant of the chaos she had caused. The queue stood in stunned silence. Then, slowly, Margaret turned to face the group. "Let this day be remembered," she said solemnly. "The day of the Great British Queue Scandal." A quiet nod of agreement passed through the queue. The bakery had reopened, but something had changed forever. The tweed jacket man sighed and looked down at his watch. 4 more minutes wasted because of one rebel," he muttered. Margaret nodded in sympathy. The unwritten laws of queuing had been violated, but they would rise above it. The queue, though wounded, would endure. Vocabulary notes. Queue, noun verb. Definition: a line of people waiting for something, especially in an orderly manner. In British English, queue is commonly used, whereas American English uses lines. Example: Margaret had been standing in the queue for exactly 12 minutes and 17 seconds. Similar words: line, waiting list, formation. Murmur, noun, verb. Definition: a quiet, continuous sound, often of people speaking in a low voice, showing dissatisfaction or unrest. Example: the queue, once a peaceful display of British patience, began murmuring like angry bees. Similar words: whisper, mutter, grumble, rumble. Scandalous, adjective. Definition: shocking, improper, or morally outrageous, often used to describe unacceptable behaviour. Example: scandalous, muttered another, shaking his head. Similar words: outrageous, disgraceful, shocking, appalling. Unwritten laws, noun phrase. Definition: rules or expectations that are widely followed but not officially stated or enforced, often associated with cultural norms. Example: the queue, usually governed by unwritten laws of etiquette, had been disrupted by a rogue element. Similar words: social norms, customs, conventions. Rogue, noun adjective. Definition: someone or something that behaves unpredictably or does not follow expected rules. Example: the queue, usually governed by unwritten laws of etiquette, had been disrupted by a rogue element. Similar words: rebel, outcast, troublemaker, misfit. Casual adjective. Definition: relaxed, unconcerned, informal, often used to describe someone acting indifferent to a serious situation. Example: the woman in red casually stepped forward and placed her order. Similar words: carefree, indifferent, relaxed, nonchalant. Affront, noun. Definition: a deliberate insult or offence, something that deeply offends or disrespects accepted behaviour. Example: it was an outrage, a crime against British values, an affront to decency. Similar words: insult, slight, provocation, offence. Endure, verb. Definition: to tolerate, persist, or suffer through something challenging without giving up. Example: the queue, though wounded, would endure. Similar words: persevere, withstand, tolerate, persist. Story written by Copilot on Windows 11. Image created by Grok 3 AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
Hello, this is Steve. If you enjoyed the story, please would you take the time to leave a meaningful comment and click on the like icon. If you want to know when the next story has been uploaded, please click on the notify bell icon to be notified. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your English learning friends so they can benefit too. Thank you.